This week, Kevin Bacon discovers how to make himself invisible in Hollow Man.
Brenda Blesson is the sweet and respectable village pot dealer in Saving Grace.
And songwriter Piper Perabo shakes more than a cocktail in Coyote Ugly.
We're ready for you.
Are you sure?
Positive. Here goes nothing.
Kevin Bacon is a brilliant scientist who becomes invisible and unpredictable in Hollow Man, one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week. I'm Roger Ebert, film critic for the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Richard Roeper, columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times. Hollow Man has a corny plot right out of a 1950s B-movie. It's about an egotistical, maverick genius and his associates, and they're all working together on this secret government project to crack the code of invisibility. But that hokey setup is dressed up in some amazing 21st century technology, as when they try the cool reverse invisibility serum on a gorilla.
We're getting cellular reaction. Cocky.
Despite warnings from his colleagues, Kevin Bacon's character, Dr. Sebastian Kane, isn't content with making animals disappear. He's ready to try that magic potion on himself.
You okay?
Yeah. Why?
You seem a little nervous.
No, I'm fine. Are you looking at me?
The problem is that once Sebastian is rendered invisible, they can't figure out how to bring him back, and that turns him into one mad scientist.
It's just a vent.
I don't know why the Bacon character goes ballistic and starts attacking everyone, turning the whole story into a slasher movie. You could call this I Know What You Did in the Lab Last Summer. His character starts off as a cocky charmer, but soon he's groping his female colleague, sexually assaulting a neighbor woman, and throwing his ex-girlfriend against the wall. Elizabeth Shue doesn't help either with her wooden line readings, and the other researchers are just stock cliches. Now, there are some impressive visual tricks in this movie, but Hollow Man is ridiculous and tedious.
There are impressive visual tricks. That's when they shoot in the colored serum and you can see the entire system of arteries and veins, and that looks neat. And also,
neat
when
for
Kevin
biology class
when he
someday.
kind of disappears and when they reappear again and so forth, that's all neat. But you're right. They take this great and interesting and stimulating premise and then turn it into a slasher movie where he's chasing them around the lab just like The Thing, except at least you could see the thing, or at least sort of see the thing. You know? When science fiction starts with an idea, I like it when it finishes with the idea. We have a movie coming up on a future show called The Cell. It really does follow the idea all the way through to the end, instead of simply derailing halfway through and turning into a cheap thriller.
It's as if they spent all the money on the special effects. They said, look at this cool stuff we can do. We can make Bacon invisible, and we can have the gorillas run around. And then they have nothing left, so they keep the movie within the confines of this dilapidated warehouse, and everybody chases each other around, and they get locked in the doors, and they're avoiding the guy who's slashing and punching, which we've seen in a million other movies.
And what about the scene where they're climbing up the ladder as the nitroglycerin is about to blow, and the fireball comes until it licks at her heels? Now, if you know anything about physics, or if you know anything about anything...
And these doctors should, because they're research geniuses.
Above the fireball is going to be a bubble of superheated gas, which is going to kill her.
Oh, okay.
You know, she's going to breathe in once and she's dead.
So that's the one
It doesn't help that
part.
you avoid the little... That's the one realistic... Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Come on. I mean, you're right, but all of it is completely implausible, predictable, and disappointing, because they had a good premise here and they had an attractive cast. It just didn't work.
Next movie. One of the hottest touring shows in the country right now is The Kings of Comedy, 4 black stand-up comedians who are filling huge arenas with jokes that mix political and social commentary. Spike Lee's new film, the original Kings of Comedy, is a concert documentary shot before a live audience in Charlotte, North Carolina, and capturing the energy of 4 comics who are all basically working in the tradition of Richard Pryor. The MC and first comedian is the well-known TV personality Steve Harvey.
It's a damn shame the whole movie was the Titanic all that long. That movie had been about black people, wouldn't even been no movie. The band was playing as the ship went down. What black band you know gonna keep playing with the damn ship going going down.
The youngest comedian, D.L. Hughley, has his own brand of African-American Bible study.
They didn't have to describe Jesus to me for me to know he was black. Jesus' first miracle was turning water into wine at a wedding. Now, if that ain't black folk, I don't know what is. Lord, we done ran out of wine. Well, y'all know normally I don't do this, but go ahead and keep the party going.
The older and mellower Cedric the Entertainer gets into politics.
You know, black people, we don't deal with debt like that. That'd be too much pressure for a black president. $6 trillion, man. He'll be sitting at the White House, man, talking about, hey, dog. Hey, man. Hey, tell him I ain't got it, man.
And Bernie Mac's edgy act is based on domestic situations.
You know, but see, women like to be your mama, your daddy, your uncle, your accountant, your pastor. They want to tell you what to do when they come, where you going. Who you talking to? Who over there? Sit down here. Don't park the car there. Slow down. Light red. Stop.
Watching this movie is like flashing back to the power and energy of Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy in their concert acts from the 70s and 80s. When comedy is based on current events, it has a way of cutting through the fog and offering hard-edged social commentary. We laugh because these comedians are funny, but also because a lot of the time they're perceptive and they're right. The original Kings of Comedy is an electrifying film showing that the heritage of Pryor and Murphy lives on.
Well, I don't think any of these guys are in the same league as Eddie Murphy or Richard Pryor, but I am giving thumbs up to this because I have to be honest, I laughed a lot. I got a lot more laughs than I've gotten out of a lot of the mainstream comedies. And you wouldn't think a director would mean that much to a comedy concert film, but Spike Lee does a great job of really zooming in on certain audience members who become part of the action.
Yeah.
And there are a few vignettes that go on off screen, you know, where the guys are at a radio station or they're messing around on a basketball court. That's kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, I also like the way that Harvey and some of the other people interact with the folks in the front row,
Right.
insulting them or kidding along with them and so forth. And,
Which is interesting stuff because they're at the end of a tour and yet they're still doing fresh stuff because it depends on who's in the crowd.
obviously they're ad-libbing as they go along. But, you know, another thing, you know, when you say they don't compare with Murphy and Pryor, well, in a way, they were the groundbreakers, especially Richard Pryor. But if you saw one of these guys in an entire concert of his own, he might really be able to develop more. I mean, here we're kind of getting the greatest hits from their acts, but even so, I think Bernie Mac, when he gets into his domestic stuff and the sister's kids that he's raising and so forth, that comes real close to the edge between humor and stuff
And all
that
of
hurts.
these guys, I mean, this is not a film for kids. I mean, this is adult material. And I think it would be crazy if we didn't talk about the fact a lot of this is about race. Each one of those comics gets on and talks about the difference between blacks and whites reacting to different situations, although it's not necessarily racist at all. I didn't see that in there.
No,
it's just pointing out differences that a lot of us are afraid to mention. These guys aren't afraid to talk about anything.
Observational. Right, coming up later in the show, urban cowgirls are the main draw at Coyote Ugly. And coming up next, Brenda Blethyn is a widow who grows pot to make ends meet in Saving Grace.
Yes, let's get to it, shall we? I'm not stupid, Matthew. I know what this is.
What is it?
Hemp.
A marijuana-fueled friendship blooms in Saving Grace, the kind of eccentric British comedy that will have the critics saying things like, it's this year's Full Monty, or in the tradition of 4 weddings and a funeral, whatever that means. Brenda Blethyn is the title character, an impoverished widow who needs to make some money fast or she's going to lose her home and all her possessions. Craig Ferguson from The Drew Carey Show is a real delight here as the gardener who stumbles into a pot-growing arrangement with Grace.
That's the start of a new bud.
You did that in 24 hours. You're a witch.
Oh, it's not me, really. It's just a question of having enough light. No light, no bud. Simple.
Soon, Grace's big score takes her into the lair of a menacing drug kingpin played by Checky Cario.
All the people I deal with are scum. I'm a little scummy myself. You're not scum. That worries me.
I take exception to that. I come from a long line of scum. My dear late husband was one of the scummiest men to walk the face of this earth.
At times, Saving Grace is too self-consciously cutesy for its own good, as when the dowdy old ladies in the neighborhood unknowingly brew up some hemp tea with the predictably zany result. But the relationships in this film and the many smiles and chuckles in the script are more than enough to carry the day. Blethyn and Ferguson have a nice and comfortable rapport, and each has an interesting romance going as well. Saving Grace might not be as funny as the Full Monty, and it doesn't quite have the style and depth of 4 Weddings and a Funeral, but it's a delightful little biscuit of a movie.
You know, I didn't like it quite enough to vote thumbs up on it. I felt that it kind of lost direction in the last 45 minutes or so. What I did like...
That's a big chunk of the movie, the last 45 minutes
I mean,
or so.
you know, the little old naked ladies running around in the garden and so forth, and a kind of homage to Waking Ned Devine with this little naked old man. But I did like the scenes where she goes into London and tries to sell the pot, and so she dresses in her best white dress and walks down Portobello Road in Notting Hill, which is not where that lady should be dressed like that to sell pot. And then she gets involved with a funny pot dealer who really thinks he's in over his head. I liked all of that stuff. I just feel like somehow it didn't pull together and really make itself into a really kind of total comic statement.
Well, maybe not a total comic statement, but there were scenes of great humanity here, like when she meets the mistress of her dead husband, who was a deadbeat husband, by the way, she finds out later on. I like the little romance between the gardener and his pregnant girlfriend. I like the fact that she has a little kind of surprising turn with this drug kingpin that comes into it. All of those elements were enough for me to recommend the movie.
Gee, you make it sound good.
Yeah, it's a pretty good movie.
You know,
I
give
check it out again, maybe.
Marginal thumbs down. Coming up next, Piper Perabo is a small-town girl who becomes a big-time barmaid in Coyote Ugly.
Oh, yeah, they're here every morning around this time. Winding down. Wait. They have to in their line of work.
They hookers?
Coyotes.
Piper Perabo plays a small-town Jersey girl new in New York and curious about those girls who are flashing lots of money in that scene. She finds out they're waitresses and dancers, bartenders in a bar named Coyote Ugly, and maybe that's the ideal way to support herself, she thinks, while she furthers her songwriting career. Maybe or maybe not. This is the bar from hell, where customers are packed in like sardines, treated like animals, and regularly sprayed with water and booze. I'd fight to get out of this bar, where the bartenders never seem to injure themselves with their death-defying nightly routines. That's Tyra Banks as one of the dancers. Meanwhile, Piper Perabo's character kind of falls in love with a restaurant cook played by Adam Garcia from Australia. He turns up to inspire a line that's just about obligatory in movies like this.
Payback time, Mr. O'Donnell.
Don't you, Dave?
Remember that Tom Cruise movie named Cocktail? Coyote Ugly is like the same movie on speed. It's the latest production by Jerry Bruckheimer, the same man who unleashed Gone in 60 Seconds and Armageddon, and who tailors his movies for audiences with severe cases of attention deficit disorder. Piper Perabo is the film's one redeeming feature. She's got real screen presence, which was also displayed in Rocky and Bullwinkle, and now let's try to get her into a movie that's better than Coyote Ugly.
Well, you just listed all the reasons why I like this movie so much. But first of all, Piper Perabo. I think we've got somebody who could be the next Julia Roberts. She just lights up the screen. And yeah, she could probably get a more intelligent vehicle than this. But this movie is what it is. My only complaint is that it's PG-13, and if you're going to be a movie like this, be an R-rated movie. Give me some gratuitous nudity going on here. You mentioned Tyra Banks, and you say the bar from hell. How could the bar from hell have Tyra Banks dancing in leather pants and a halter top on it? That is not the bar from hell.
Well, this is the bar from hell movie version. But, I mean, come on. Would you want to be in a place where you cannot move, where they're spraying you with booze, where they're setting the bar on fire?
I've been in that place many times, my friend. I've been in that place.
There is a time to get out of that place.
You know what? I got a big
But here's my point. Here's my point. Jerry Bruckheimer made this as a PG-13 movie because he always has a finger in the wind, and he knows that this is the summer when R-rated is supposed to be bad at the box office. So suddenly, we're now going to get all of these adult movies with PG-13 ratings, which means the older people don't get any sex, and the younger kids get stuff that's way too old for them.
Well, I got a big kick out of it. I thought John Goodman was a hoot as the dad. And you mentioned Cocktail. It's a lot like Cocktail. It's also a lot like Flashdance. And you can only expect certain things from movies like this. And I thought this one hit it on all cylinders.
I got news for you. I didn't like Flashdance either. I mean, come on. There has to be something for the gray matter. Something?
All right.
Something?
Okay, let me give you something for the gray matter here, okay? It's called The Tao of Steve. It's our next movie with Donald Logue starring as not Steve, but Dex, a pear-shaped Lothario who relies on BS and a big brain to charm the pants off women. Nobody in this movie is named Steve. It's a reference to Steve McQueen and other cool guys with that moniker. If you're a Steve, you're cool. If you're a dork, you're Stu. You'd think the pot-smoking, pot-bellied, underachieving Dex would be a classic Stu under those rules, but his smooth rap makes him all Steve.
Those were great margaritas. My last date, we had pizza and a six-pack.
Whoa, Julie, I don't know if I'd call this a date.
Really?
Yeah, it's just dating's so tricky, that's all. I mean, you're really cool and you have a great personality. I just don't want to... Man, I just don't want to mess up our friendship.
Friendship? We just met.
Dex has so perfected the Tao of Steve that he enjoys sharing his wisdom with proteges.
The basic principle, we pursue that which retreats from us.
It's from Heidegger.
Groucho Marx said the same thing. Act like a woman can't join your club, and she'll do almost anything to get in.
But the passive-aggressive Dex meets his match in the intriguing Sid, played by Greer Goodman.
What do you look for in a woman?
Low standards.
Well, she has to be thin. Oh, you wouldn't date a heavy woman.
No way. I am a fattest. I admit it. And I'm the worst kind of fattest. I'm a fat fattest.
You don't see too many movies about smart people in their early 30s who aren't making a lot of money and never will make a lot of money and yet are grateful for their jobs and their friends and the people they love, but they're here in the Tao of Steve and they're fun to hang with. Donald Logue is a character actor who works a lot. He's in 8 films this year, including The Patriot and Steal This Movie, and he has that Philip Seymour Hoffman ability to disappear into his roles. But here he shines as a most unlikely leading man. The Tao of Steve is a real treat.
Boy, it really is. I liked it, and I was reminded of High Fidelity and of a movie called Kicking and Screaming, also about people in their early 30s who are articulate. I get so tired of movies, especially comedies, where all the dialogue is either one-liners or it's devised simply to push the plot along. These people stop to talk about their thoughts, their observations, their philosophies, their questions, to talk to each other, and it's a delight to listen to that.
And they look like real people. Yeah. They have this kind of a comfortableness with each other. All the smaller roles in the film are well filled out. I thought it was just a terrific job by Donald Logue, or we're going to learn how to say his name eventually. Donald Logue is his name, and all the supporting characters
This
as well.
movie is a perfect example of why Coyote Ugly is so bad, because nobody in that movie
Back
says
to Coyote
anything.
Ugly again.
Coyote Ugly, everybody in that, all they say in that movie is just stuff made in the machine shop of Hollywood screenwriting in order to push the plot through to the end while having lots of noise and music. This is a movie about people, human beings, actual human beings. Okay, when we come back, my video pick is one of the key American films of the last 25 years.
Roger Ebert in the Movies Video Pick of the Week is brought to you by Nestle Raisinets. At the movies or at home, Raisinets.
My video pick this week is Robert Altman's Nashville, the 1975 film that used country music as a stage for a bicentennial portrait of America. This is a big, sprawling, exuberant, ambitious film filled with songs, almost all of them written by the actors themselves for the characters they play. Gwen Wells is a waitress hired to strip at a fundraiser for a Reform Party presidential candidate. Lily Tomlin is a married woman who hesitantly goes to meet the folk singer played by Keith Carradine, who wants to have an affair with her.
Yeah, I'm easy. Take my hand and pull me down. I won't put up and fight because I'm easy.
At a concert at Nashville's Parthenon, shots suddenly ring out.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
The 25th anniversary edition of Nashville has been restored for video, and on the DVD, there's a commentary track by Robert Altman himself, who remembers that they shot at the Grand Ole Opry on the very day when President Nixon resigned. Nashville is my video pick of the week.
Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this week's show. 2 thumbs down for Hollow Man, great special effects wasted in a slasher film. But 2 thumbs up for Spike Lee's concert film, The Original Kings of Comedy. It opens in 2 weeks. We split on Saving Grace. Roger thought the story fell apart. I was charmed by the relationship. Another big split on Coyote Ugly. Roger thought it was loud, shallow, and obvious. That's why I loved it. And finally, 2 thumbs up on The Doll of Steve with its smart dialogue and likable characters. Biggest disappointment, Hollow Man. It really, really was a disappointment for me. I was looking forward to this.
Yeah, I loved Doll of Steve. I think it's a real discovery. And also Original Kings of Comedy, which isn't going to open for another 2 weeks. Very funny.
Absolutely.
Okay, remember, you can hear our reviews on Ebert-movies.com and read us in print at suntimes.com. Next week, more new movies, including The Cell, which I mentioned earlier, a psychological thriller starring Jennifer Lopez, and also Keanu Reeves and Gene Hackman in The Replacements, a comedy about football players looking to make a comeback.
Are you going to get me that ball? I hope he didn't kill somebody.
That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.